Welcome to Social Media Talks podcasts, brought to you by compassmedia.ie.
Hello and welcome to Social Media Talks podcasts, brought to you by compassmedia.ie. I'm your host, Alan Hennessy, and this is the podcast to help business owners understand social media marketing. And we are looking forward to today's show. We have Ted Rubins, and Ted is a social media strategist and evangelist and the acting CMO of Brand Innovators and the co-founder of Prevailing Paths. He is also an author of the book Return on Relationships, and he is the most followed CMO on Twitter according to Social Media Marketing, and ranked number 13 on Forbes' top 50 list of social media power influencers. So we're going to transition straight over to the interview and have a chat with Ted. Hi Ted, how are you today? Good to see you.
Hey Alan, so I'm really happy to be here. You know, I get interviewed on a lot of these things, but to me, it's always special and best when it's with someone who's a friend. And it's for me, when you and I met over in Ireland, one of the 3 times, actually, I think it was the first time I spoke there last year, of 3 times I was there, I think we had an immediate kinship, and I'm really happy to be here with you.
Yeah, and it's brilliant to have you on the show. Delighted to have you on.
Well, as I understand it, we're here to talk about return on relationship.
We are,
and
indeed.
And a big part of that is the people you meet around the world, how you stay connected, looking them in the eye digitally. And I was fortunate on my first trip, along with meeting you, of meeting an interesting lad by the name of Sean Nolan. And this guy was just kind of hanging around the outskirts, tapping me on the shoulder. Next thing I know, he's hugging me, sharing Guinness with me, buying me Irish whiskey, and we became fast friends. So the next 2 times I was there, we spent some special time together. My last time in November, he took me on the tour of the country. And I really got to see a lot more of Ireland than just Dublin. And because of that, Dublin before that had become my favorite city in the world. Now Ireland's probably my favorite country in the world. And again, in accordance with return on relationship, Sean shows up at my doorstep and he's staying here with me this week and we're having some great fun. So Sean, why don't you say hello to everybody?
Hey, hi Alan, hey everybody. And look, I met you, about 18 months ago?
Something like that.
And the funny thing is that we connected through the power of social. We were able to not only just continue that relationship, but build on it. And 18 months later, I'm in Ted's beautiful place down in Florida. I'm enjoying the humidity. Shorts and t-shirts, working. I'm living the dream.
And that's exactly what it's all about, isn't it? It is absolutely about return on relationship. And that is, of course, what we're here to talk about today. It really is great to have Ted here because he is, of course, an evangelist of the return on relationships. Everyone should know the hashtag. It's ONR, which is for the hashtag that he uses. And it is a huge part of what we do with social media for business and for building relationships across online. So Ted, I just want to know, I suppose the first question I would ask is why do you champion return on relationships so much?
Well, you know, Alan, the way it's happened is I've always been a relationship guy. I used to call myself a networker because my whole life, wherever I went, I met people and I added them to my life, and I kept connecting with them even when I left companies, even before the power of social media, which has made it so much easier. But what I didn't realize what I was truly doing was I was building communities, because all my friends know each other. I introduce people from all different walks of life. I bring them together. They're in different groups. We have different circles of friendship. And I realized that it was more than just networking. The relationship aspect made it a community building. And I like to say that a network gives you reach, but a community gives you power. Networks connect, communities care. And so I always did this. It was who I was. And then I found myself in 2008 as the CMO of a company called Elf Cosmetics, eyes-lips-face.com. And they had no marketing budget. And some people were like, why would you take the job of a CMO with a company with no marketing budget? And my take was, because it's exciting and it's interesting and you really have to use your brain. Anybody can take $100 million marketing budget and buy media and hire extra people and hire influencers and do all these things. But imagine, which a lot of your audience, I would suppose, are small businesses. Imagine you're trying to promote your business and you don't have big budgets. What do you do? And I found myself at this brand that, I mean, it wasn't tiny, but they were doing about $6 million a year. They'd started a few years before. They'd had great success, but they were running out of steam a bit because most of their sales had come from public relations, articles written in magazines, traditional word of mouth. And I totally brought them into the social space. But when I did it, I immediately recognized, as I got involved in Facebook, Twitter, YouTube at the time, that this was a space where people want to engage and connect. They're not looking to be sold. Now, that doesn't mean you can't sell them. But if that's all you're doing, then you're taking this powerful connection medium and you're turning it into nothing more than just another advertising platform. So you're not really changing what you've done in the past, other than maybe some better targeting or like Facebook does, some better contextual connection. So I was at once I was growing their company in sales. I was building a huge social following, but I wasn't allowing our team to sell the way we did via email, via the web, via traditional digital ads in the same way. I wanted to build a connection. I was very protective of my group. Now, even in one of the beauties of this is a small company. There was no legal team, and they basically let me do anything I wanted as long as they didn't have to write a check or a big check for it. Obviously, they have to pay for the manpower. So, of course, like any company, the owners were like, okay, so when can we sell here? And what's the ROI? And you know, I can't say I was totally prepared for this, because for a while I was holding them off, but I had to come up with a philosophy, a concept that they would understand. And I kind of knew what it was inside me, but I hadn't come up with wording for it. And I'm sitting in their office one day, and we have this weekly meeting, and they're like, okay, Ted, enough is enough. We need to see some ROI. And I looked at them and I said, guys, I understand where you're coming from. And I'm totally all about, I mean, obviously, if we don't have return on investment, I'm not going to have a job. I said, but this is more about return on relationship. And it was really, I'd been ruminating this idea in my head, but it was the first time I vocalized it to somebody sitting in front of me. And here I have these two father-son, hard-nosed guys. They have their business. And they just stopped. I expected them to say, "What is this nonsense?" You know, what's the Irish term for one of these things? I don't know. One of my friends called Sean a tosser. And they looked at me and they just stopped and they started rubbing their heads and they're thinking, they're like, return on relationship. Now, I was very fortunate. The meeting was almost over and they said, "Okay, Ted, we have somebody else waiting for us, but we want to get together again before the end of the week and hear a little bit more about this return on relationship." So I bolted out of the office and I did what I still do to this very day, and this was back in 2008. I went to Twitter. At the time, I had what people considered a fair amount of followers. It was 2,000. I have a few more than that now.
Ever so slightly.
I sent out a tweet that said, it's not just about return on investment. It's about return on relationship. And within 5 minutes, even at that limited time of my reach, I got 20 retweets and I got outreach from people saying, wow. And I realized I was onto something. So I continue to do what I do. I start posting and I look to see the feedback I get from people. Because, you know, we have great thought process ourselves, but if we just think ourselves in a bubble, we're not understanding how people are perceiving what we're saying. And it's not what you're saying. I like to say a brand is what a business does. A reputation is what people remember and share. It's the way people perceive you, not the way you perceive yourself. So I just started thinking about this and I started writing about it and people jumped onto it right away. And little by little, I started building something around it. And then people reached out to me and said, "Oh, Ted, you've got to really develop this. You've got to stop writing blog posts about it." And little by little, it came to life. And when I met back with them, I explained to them that, you know, people like to say, what's the ROI of social media? And my answer, what I asked them back when they asked that is I asked them, what's the ROI of trust and what's the ROI of loyalty?
Yeah, totally.
And any senior executive, they might not get the word advocacy or shares or retweets or any of this nonsense, but when you talk to them about trust and loyalty, they understand that's the brass ring in any business. Because what does trust and loyalty lead to? It leads to a long-term business relationship. So it adds to a longer lifetime value of the customer. It adds to a larger average order value, and it adds to a more frequent purchases because people feel comfortable with you, they're loyal to you. Instead of going somewhere else, they come back to you. Yeah. So that's where this all developed from. And for me, I knew, and again, my second book is called How to Look People in the Eye Digitally, because when I first wrote about that, people understood it. It was part of return on relationship. They understood it meant connecting the way you and I connected when we met in Ireland, but being able to do it via these platforms.
And and it is so true. And like, as we said, like when we met in Ireland, I had followed you for quite a while and I had just loved the whole concept of the return on relationship. And when I met you, you embraced it as much as anything else. Like, it wasn't a case of saying, okay, right, I'm here to do a conference or whatever, but you actually stopped. You said, yeah, sure, let's have a chat. And we ended up having a great talk. And then over the course of the conference, we ended up seeing quite a lot of each other, which was brilliant. And it really got there was a trust there, and you felt that, it just wasn't just someone saying something. And that, I think, as well, what social media does is a lot of businesses out there, they just go, right, let's post out all of our, what we're selling, what we're doing, and not actually thinking of the end user and thinking of what their outcome is going to be and how are they going to perceive you. So with the building on relationships, I think that is a huge part of any business, whether it be bricks and mortar, whether it be online as well.
Right. And if you're just broadcasting, you have no ability to learn. The beauty of these platforms is they do go both ways. So you can learn. You put up something, you get feedback about it. It used to be you posted an ad, the only feedback you knew was whether people used it or talked about it. Or now someone can come right back to you and say, I'm not really sure that I understand what you're saying, or I don't really think you're expressing that properly. And you learn immediately. But just to put a little bit of a shape around this so your audience understands the way I view return on relationship. I like to talk about return on relationship, and it's people ROR versus ROI. So return on relationship. The hashtag I use, as you mentioned, is hashtag RONR for return on relationship. Why I didn't use hashtag ROR is a story for another time because it'll take up too much of this podcast, but that's a marketing story unto itself. But to give you just a little bit of a definition, I like to say that return on relationship, simply put, is the value that is accrued by a person or a brand due to nurturing a relationship. ROI is simple dollars and cents, whereas ROR is the value, both perceived and real, that will accrue over time through connection, loyalty, recommendations, and sharing. And it's used to define and educate companies, brands, and people, let's not leave the people part out of this, about the importance of creating authentic connection, interaction, and engagement.
Yeah. It's and it is, and and by doing that, of course, as well, you're able to start measuring what it is that people are looking for and understanding them. And it's an education in itself from doing this, from talking to these, from interacting and commenting and whatever it may be, whatever way or whatever form of your return on relationship is. It's imperative that you learn from it, and you take your business as well, and you take that to your next level with your business, I suppose.
100%. There was an interesting panel. God, it's funny, the years are coming together here, but I believe this was probably 2011, so about 6 years ago. And on the panel was Gary Vaynerchuk, Chris Brogan, and Jeffrey, oh my God, from Kodak. I can't believe his name is dropping out of my head right now. But he was the CMO of Kodak at the time. He was a bit of a social celebrity. He was a large company CMO that was championing social media in the early days. And somebody from the audience asked a question because, at the time, Gary was very involved in Twitter. That was his primary platform. And someone said, "Hey, Gary, I hear a lot of talk. Twitter's having issues. What would happen if Twitter disappeared?" And he gave, the words came out of my mouth. And it's things I had said before. And he said exactly what I thought was the perfect answer. He said, "It doesn't make a difference. It's not about the platform. It's about the relationships you're building on the platform." And he said, and I know that, and back then, remember, he was well known, but not nearly as well known as he is now. And he said, "I'm building a brand here, and no matter what platform I'm on, people will come there. If you build a relationship, if you add value, if you do something that people appreciate, it won't matter what platform it's on. They'll find you wherever people end up migrating to." And by the way, it's Jeffrey Hazlett, who was from Kodak.
Yeah, I didn't like to interrupt you, but yeah, no, and I totally agree with it. And you need, I suppose, do you or should you be proficient in digital to keep this going and to be able to do what we're saying, what we're talking about here?
No, absolutely. Like I said, the beauty here is this is the age of influence, where anybody can build a brand, affect change, make a difference 24/7 without ever leaving their bedroom. Now, I'm not advocating not leaving your bedroom, but the point is there was a time where doing these things as a second job or in your spare time were very difficult, or if you were unemployed, you had to spend money, go to a local networking event, get there, find the time, possibly buy a drink, possibly pay for dinner. Now you can sit at home anytime, in the morning when you wake up, late at night when you get home, while you're working, while you're on the train, and you can be building relationships and engaging with people and getting people to know who you are. I get calls every day. I have one after this with a guy that I met in the lobby of a hotel at an event that I stopped by at as a favor to the organizers because I had spoken at it a couple of years before. And apparently he follows me on social media, and he saw me on my phone calling a Lyft at the front of the hotel, and he came over to say hello, and we struck up a relationship and a friendship, and since then we've been communicating. And he reached out to me the other day saying, I do a great job building a brand for my company, Ingram Micro. He goes, but I really haven't had any success doing it for myself. How do I do that? Could we have a quick conversation? And by the way, I love when someone says it like that. They don't get on the phone and ask me to pick my brain or send me. Don't ever use that expression, pick your brain. Don't ever ask somebody, can I pick your brain? It sounds disgusting. And it's also very often related to doing something for nothing. Instead, say to somebody, hey, I really admire you. Is there something you could help me or talk about with? Or, hey, I'd love to exchange notes. Or is there anything I can do for you? I'd love if we could have a conversation. There's so many ways to phrase it that are and this guy phrased it exactly the right way. He just said, hey, I really appreciate all you write and all you do, and I follow you all the time. Do you think you could spare a few minutes for a conversation? So we're going to jump on a call after this just to talk about some of the things he could be doing to build his personal brand, because he's recognizing, like I tell people all the time, so many people don't get on LinkedIn, don't start publishing content, don't start reaching out to anybody until they lose their jobs. You ever notice that?
Yeah,
all of a sudden, somebody you haven't spoken to in forever reaches out, and I know immediately, he's out of work. I immediately go to LinkedIn to see if he's still at his company, because people wait until they need something before they do something. I like to say, do for others without expectation of anything directly in return. Because again, that will build your brand and your reputation. So when you do need something, people will just be open and apt to help you. And there is a lot of ROI in that, because you know the expression, what goes around comes around. Pay it forward. All these things are real. The reason people write about them and make movies about them is because these things actually do enhance your life.
And that's very true. And it's as I always say, like when we look at social media and we look at everything that's evolved and around that's happened in the last, I suppose, 5-10 years, in the way that social media has built up relationships. Like I know when we went to that conference, I walked in and I was saying, all right, well, I'll just go and I'll see the speakers and I might meet someone I know, and I ended up finding there was hundreds. There was a huge gang of us who we just said, oh, you're such and such from Twitter. Oh, and I've seen you on Facebook. You know what I mean? And it was a great way of us cementing relationships as well, where we took it, we didn't keep it online. We started it online, but we brought it offline, and we were able to interact with the people there and then in front of us.
And then you have the ability to continue it online. I mean, It used to be, I'd come to Ireland, I'd meet Alan. We'd not speak after that. Maybe you'd call me on the phone here or there. And then the next time I see Alan, I have no idea what's happened in his life. Yeah. Now we're connected periodically. You'll like something. I'll look at something you did. There's a million ways to get people's attention, even if you don't think they're doing it anyway. And then when we get together, there's so much more that adds to it. Like sometimes people say, oh, social media is making people not meet people face to face. And I say that's nonsense. To me, it enhances every meeting I have.
Totally agree.
Because I've known so much more in between. I don't have to be brought up to speed on the last 4 years. I can say, oh my God, like I love when your daughter went to nursery school for the first time. That was those photos were great. And very often you don't even know that person saw those photos, because number one, you might not notice even if I did like it. But number two is I might not have liked it. I might have just scrolled past it. It's not just about people clicking the buttons. But then I know, and like it happens to me all the time. And I used to say this, that most people on social participate vicariously. It means they watch other conversations and they never click a button. They never click like. But they know I bumped into not just everyday people. I bumped into CEOs of Fortune 500 companies who will look at me and go, and by the way, they're not my friend on Facebook. They've never liked a post. I've never engaged with them on social, but they see me at an event and they go, oh, dude. And they'll pound their chest and go, that's that surfing trip you took with your 16-year-old daughter. Wow. Like, I get that. Like, I feel that. And if you don't understand the way this works in your head, you might go, oh my God, how did you see that? Because so many more people are seeing than you know are seeing. And this goes for individuals and brands. Yeah. And that's the beauty of this, is that this communication, this connection is available 24/7 to many people you don't even know are looking.
Yeah, totally agree. So like I could sit here and I could talk to you all day about this, and we could go on for hours here, but we're coming to the end of our podcast today. So I just want to ask you, what is maybe either your top tips or your top tip for return on relationship when it comes to for the small businesses out there that are trying to get their message out there and trying to get that return on relationship?
My top tip is what I said a little bit earlier. Do for others without expectation of anything directly in return. I don't know if you noticed what's going on in Houston now. I'm sure you have, all the flooding, but there was just right before I got on this podcast, there's a news broadcast about a guy that owns a number of mattress stores in the Houston area. He opened his stores and let people sleeping on all the mattresses. He's bringing people in, and believe me, this guy is not, he's probably going to lose money in advance, of course, because mattresses are going to get ruined, the place is going to get trashed. But what first of all, he's doing for others. Believe me, he's not doing the math, figuring out how many mattresses he's going to sell. But I guarantee you, this guy's business will more than flourish because he stepped up and did for others. But in a smaller way, because God forbid, we don't want to be in those kind of disasters to build our brand. Reach out to people, serendipitously share someone's content. Look at the people. Most businesses never do this. Go and see who follows you or your business. Don't wait for them to come to your page. Go to their page. Like some of their content. Share something that they shared. Say, hey, we love, we're a local business. We love local people. Here's Alan Hennessy doing this, or here's Sean Nolan doing that. That is my number one tip. Beyond that, things that are a little bit more complicated, try to build content that helps people, and not just about what you're selling. Yes, if you sell air filters or air conditioners, it's great to publish content about what are the best things to find, how do they work in different environments, what the cost levels are, things like that. But also put things about lifestyle, about feeling healthier, about things people want to see and share. Make yourself as human as possible, because that will make your business as human as possible.
Brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. And Ted, how can people find you on social media? I know we could probably write a book on how you find you, but where really is the best way to, I suppose, follow you? You're on.
Well, it's really easy to follow me. I'm at Ted Rubin everywhere. TEDRUBIN. At Ted Rubin on Twitter. At Ted Rubin on Instagram. Ted Rubin on Facebook. Ted Rubin on just about every platform. My YouTube channel is the only one that's different. It's Ted Rubin USA. But really, do it simply. Just go to Google and Google Ted Rubin. The first 10 pages are me, basically.
Brilliant. Well, thanks. And once again, I really do appreciate you coming on our social media podcast. It's a pleasure always to talk to you, and we wish you all the best. And you need to go off and enjoy yourself now and have a little bit. I suppose you might be going out with Sean maybe later on.
Well, that might happen. We make sure to stock up on some Guinness and some. I brought some Teeling Irish whiskey, and Sean brought me a great bottle from Ireland. So we're going to have some fun. We're going to get some sun. We're going to get some fresh air. But I will also leave your audience with the fact that reach out to me anytime. My email address is tedrubin@gmail.com, and my phone number is 516-270-5511. I'm looking forward.
Thanks very much, Ted. And it was a pleasure as always. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So my thanks to Ted Rubins for coming on the show today. This has been Social Media Talks Podcast. I've been Alan Hennessy, and we do thank you for your company. And don't forget, if you are looking to find out more about Ted Rubin, you can Google him, as he said himself, at Ted Rubin, and follow the hashtag OR. I've been Alan Hennessy, and this has been Social Media Talks Podcast, brought to you by Compass Media. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Compass Media. And we're also on Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram and LinkedIn. And for more information about any of our services we provide from Compass Media, log on to the website, which is www.compassmedia.ie. So until next time, have a great day, and we'll see you all very, very soon. Until next time, bye-bye.
Social Media Talks Podcast is a production from compassmedia.ie.